Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Shlimovich, and this is The Confident Vegan. On this channel, you'll find insightful interviews with inspiring vegans, practical tips for plant-based living, and empowering conversations about what it really means to live in alignment with your values. I am also the co-host of That Vegan Morning Show with Kimberly Winters of the Did You Bring the Hummus podcast. You can check that out on YouTube at That Vegan Morning Show. Today, my special guest is Deanna Meyler. Deanna cares strongly about social justice and has been vegan since 1998. She is the Director of Development at the Lancaster Cleft Palate Clinic. It is the only independent and approved craniofacial care clinic in the United States and accepts all patients no matter their background or ability to pay. In the past, Deanna led a small nonprofit focused on animal rights, was part of the advocacy team at a large immigration rights nonprofit, worked in advertising consulting for a decade, and was also in academia for a decade. Deanna has a PhD in sociology, advanced certification in community leadership, and is a master certified vegan lifestyle coach and educator, and has a certification in plant-based nutrition. She's also the founder of An Everyday Vegan, which is a lifestyle website. Deanna's personal mission is to make the world a better place, one meal at a time. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you so much. I'm
It
so
is,
glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here. We have connected before. You have been on That Vegan Morning Show, and I'm going to include a link to that interview as well in the notes below. If anyone watching wants to go check that out, I remember we had a really great interview, really great conversation. And we're going to talk about an organization that you are a part of called Women Funders and Animal Rights, which is doing really important work. But before we talk about that, I want to know, what is your vegan story?
Oh my gosh, my vegan story. Let's hold on to our hinder parts for a minute. I say that because it's a bit traumatic. And so for any of us listening out there that might be triggered by a traumatic story, please know it's coming. So I started my vegan journey for health reasons. Many people start for health reasons. I was actually born unable to properly digest animal proteins, but I didn't quite
Hmm.
figure this out until I was in high school when my mom took me to the doctor complaining about my stomach hurting a lot. And the doctor, we did all these tests, we tried some different medications, and got nowhere. All the tests said I was beautifully healthy. The medications didn't do anything because it hadn't been properly diagnosed. And finally, the doctor said, you just struggle digesting animal proteins. You have a sensitivity. So I recommend you cut out the things that are causing you the most trouble, and that will help. So I did. I started that process. And of course, as many people who have been in a process of cutting out foods, once you start to cut certain things out, other things start to trigger you that you didn't even realize were going to be problems. And so this having a sensitivity to animal proteins just got worse and worse and worse. And so I had cut out dairy, I had cut out most meats. I was down to just a few things because I was in it for health. I was not being motivated by other things at that moment.
Hmm.
Then I was talking with a friend one day, and he said something about window cows. He didn't know what they were. I didn't know what they were. At the time, I was going to school at a agriculturally based university. So it had a lot of animals and ag work being done there, and they had window cows. So we decided to go walk over that part of campus and see what this was because we didn't know what that meant. Are they behind a window? Do they stand over a window? What is this window? What does this mean? So we walk up to this herd of cows. I think there were maybe six of them. This is over 20 years ago now. So the exact number has faded from my memory. And
Understood.
right. And what we saw was not at all what we anticipated. So a window cow is a cow that has a hole cut out of the side of it that's about the size of my head or your head. And they cut all the way through everything to get to the the stomach. And cows have multiple stomachs, so they're getting to one specific stomach on purpose. They're cutting through skin, they're cutting through muscle, they're cutting through bone because that's a big hole. So they're going through everything, stomach lining, all of it. And then they put a big rubber stopper in that over that hole so that the hole stays there. So imagine this big rubber stopper with a panel that's also rubber. I'm saying rubber, I don't know the exact material, but the idea is that then they can put their hand in the hole and pull out the cud. So imagine walking up to a herd of cows, all with windows in them. Now, if you go online and you do a search for window cow, you'll see some very sanitized images. It doesn't look like what I saw at all.
Mm.
What I saw was pus. I saw skeletal cows. They were not healthy cows. I saw flies everywhere. I saw bowed heads. They weren't eating, they were bowed heads, and what we would call tears as humans. Cows produce tears differently than humans for
Mhm.
different reasons, but it's always for something dramatic, whether that's pain or joy or something. It's very dramatic for them to produce what we would call a tear. At least that's how those who work in the animal sanctuary movement have described it to me. So, six very sad looking cows that did not look healthy, and I cried. I cried. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
react to that. My friend was astonished. We were both so overwhelmed by seeing these window cows, and we were unsure what to do because what do you do with that? We'd never heard of it. Most people I've encountered since then, and like I said, it's been over 20 years, don't know about this. And I went vegan. I was like, I cannot contribute to this or anything like this again. I just can't. So, taking on the whole vegan lifestyle, not just what I ate, what I wore, the products I
Yeah.
used, the whole 9 yards, because I couldn't contribute to a system that would cause that kind of visible pain that I was seeing, because most of it's hidden from us. If we all went to dairy cows and saw what they are going through on a regular basis, we might have a similar reaction.
Yeah.
Or a chicken farm, or any scenario in which a lot of animals are living lives that we would consider not worth living.
Thank you for sharing that. Um, it's really horrific what happens to animals for human consumption. And I never heard of it. I heard you were recently on Did You Bring the Hummus podcast, and I heard you talking about that. And this was the first time I ever heard of this. And I remember messaging Kimberly afterwards, being like, "Oh my God, I never heard of this. How come this isn't common knowledge?" Because I've never heard of such a thing. And can you share like why they put these windows in the cows? You said it's to remove the cud. So why do they even do this in the first place?
That was my big question for years. This was pre going online and searching. So I just
Hmm.
didn't know. And I didn't know a lot of people that worked in agriculture that could answer my questions. So it took a long time. But I finally learned that they do this because the dairy cows, the ones that are being impregnated and milked over and over and over again, their microbiome suffers in that process with the antibiotics and the all of it. It just really, they struggle with it, their microbiome, which can make them sick. It can make it harder for them to produce at the levels they're expected to. So what they do is they take some of the sterile cows, the ones that won't be able to produce the milk and they are thus then considered invaluable to the industry, and they turn them into these window cows. It's not a lot, certainly not all the cows that are born sterile. Those cows will go to the various responses, typically
Hmm.
veal sold on the market, chopped up,
Yeah.
all the things that many of us are familiar with. But these sterile cows, they get the window installed. And then what happens is that they go and they pull out the cud and they give it to the cows whose microbiome is being hurt because of all of the things that are happening to them. So the
Ugh.
sterile cows have a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
And apparently it doesn't impact the microbiome at the same level. So that then they can take that and feed it to the dairy cows, and it keeps it in that closed system for them. So they're helping the dairy cows, but they're not losing as much on the sterile cows because it's supporting the industry, those kinds of things. So when you think about it in those very sterile ways, you're like, oh, okay, that might make sense until you see it and you remember that it is a hole the size of my head in the side of a cow with a stopper.
Which doesn't sound comfortable at all. And who
Can't imagine.
knows how, painful it is to have it installed. Like, I can't imagine much care is being, put into their pain management, just based on how they're treated in the, animal agriculture industry. So,
And what does it feel like to have a hand go in your stomach on a
and
regular
just have
basis?
this thing in your side the whole
Yeah,
time. And then you're being susceptible to infection. And it is such a terrible thing. And I really appreciate you sharing about it on here because it's something I didn't know about until recently from hearing you speak about it. And yeah, I wish more was shared about this. It's something I'm going to look into more to try to understand because it's so important we bring these things and make them visible, and have these conversations. And sure, it's uncomfortable, and yeah, we've lived in this normalized system that takes advantage of animals, and and it's justified, and it's not okay. And if these things, if people saw what happened for what ends up in the grocery store. Like I talk about it all the time on here about cognitive dissonance. We all grew up, most of us, in non-vegan homes, and you just go to the grocery store and you buy the packaged meat and you know what it is, but you don't think too much about it. And like my vegan journey started for health as well. I gave up dairy because I was having issues with the rosacea and eczema, especially rosacea. I had a bad flare up, and so I did an experiment and gave up dairy for 30 days. And during that period of time, I had looked up vegan recipes. I mean, I looked up dairy-free recipes, and a lot of vegan recipes came up, and I discovered this whole world of food that looked better than what I was making as a non-vegan. Colorful and different vegetables. And I was concerned about heart health. My mother had died of a heart attack in 2007, and I came across whole food plant-based and forks over knives. And I discovered this whole world of like eating really good food without feeling deprived. And so it started off there for me. And then I watched a documentary. It was Vegucated. I don't know if you ever saw that one where it was like a group of like, I forgot how many people, 4 or 5 people maybe in New York City, and they were showing all the different aspects of veganism, and they had to go vegan for like a month or something like that. And it showed all the different things, and that planted the seed. And what took me a while is I knew my family wouldn't want to go vegan, and it took me like a couple of years until I finally it felt like my soul was screaming at me like you just can't keep doing this to yourself. Which is why I had this platform to help others have the confidence to be in alignment, do what feels good for them, even if their family's not on board. You can find a way to coexist in a non-vegan household and still honor your values. And so that's,
absolutely. And Vegucated is such a good movie. It's
yeah,
old now that when we
yeah,
go watch it, we think, boy, this was a while ago. But they
yeah.
show what happens to the animals. They show what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with the environment. They show what happens to everyone's physical health too from
Yeah.
making this change. So it's a really, really nice video or movie to watch. especially when you're just starting on your journey and thinking about it and processing everything. So yeah, that's a
Absolutely.
great one.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I watched it again recently, like over the summer or like over the fall, and I was like, wow, this does look dated now. But it's still relevant information. And I like it because most documentaries usually focus on one particular area, but this like it was like a nice little like variety of little bite-sized information to get people started. So yeah, that was a very impactful documentary for me. And so that's why I'm here now having conversations with people like you to share that education and just create that awareness for people. Start planting those seeds. So yeah, thanks again for sharing that story. I'm sure it's not a pleasant to think about it again and talk about it, but I feel like it's so important to share that, especially since not too many people know about this. So thank you again. So you
It's my honor. I just hope it inspires others and helps us all really feel good about the choices that we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again. So, you do all kinds of really important, impactful work. And what inspired you to get into the work that you do? All of it, because you do all kinds of cool things.
Thank you. Well, I grew up pretty humble.
Hmm.
And I grew up in a primarily Mexican American neighborhood. So I was the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl in my class a lot of times. And it just really showed me that the world was very different in one setting compared to another. So that
Hmm.
was my childhood. That was through elementary school. And then in junior high, I moved and went to live with my mother in the suburbs. And suddenly I was among mostly white people, and I
Hmm.
was terrified because it
Hmm.
wasn't what I knew, it wasn't what I understood. And suddenly all of these cultural things that I knew, that I had learned, that I had comfort in were gone. And I did not understand. I did not know what was going on. And I had no way to explain it. And what it really did for me was just inspire me to try to do it differently, right? Like if I struggled with these things because I had gone from one environment to another, maybe I can help make it easier in the world in general. And so that's really where my social justice passion comes from. So the decisions, it wasn't always like this. You talked a little bit about my previous careers, but my decisions the last decade have all been about how can I stay true to that initial seed of inspiration in my life, that this world can be better and I can potentially influence that in ways that help me feel good about where I am in the world and
Hmm.
maybe, just maybe, make it a little easier for others too.
That's beautiful. I wish the whole world thought this way. And it's so important that you do that. It's interesting how our childhood experiences can shape us and plant these seeds to do bigger things. And yeah, that's wonderful that you were able to have those different experiences growing up to then inspire you to do the work that you do.
Oh yeah, today I am honored that I got to go through all of that and experience all of that. When it was happening, I was so confused. I didn't
I'm
fit in,
sure.
and it was very awkward. But you know what? Everybody's awkward in junior high.
Hmm.
Almost nobody feels like they fit in. It was just different reasons for me, and I needed more to figure out what it was. So it wasn't until college when I started taking sociology classes, which is why I ended
Hmm.
up getting a PhD in sociology, that I started to understand why that it all happened and why it perpetuates and how we can think about it differently in ways to make it better, not just for me, but for others too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you're part of an incredible organization called Women Funders and animal rights. Can you share more about what Women Funders in Animal Rights is, what their mission is, their history, and all the cool things that they do?
Yeah, so Women Funders in Animal Rights is a giving circle. And the whole purpose is to help small women-led animal rights nonprofit groups get critical funding for the success of their missions. And it came out of the animal rights Me Too movement several years ago.
Mhm.
So if we all remember the Me Too movement, some of that came out in the animal rights movement too. It was mostly men leading organizations. There were lots of various stories and terrifying actions that needed to be addressed. And so a small group of women in the animal rights movement realized they had to do it different. We have to do something different. And part of what was happening was because it was mostly men in leadership positions, it was mostly men-led organizations that were getting funding. So this small group of women grew and did various things. It ended up being multiple organizations, some of which still exist today, some of which don't. But one of them that still exists today is this Women Funders in Animal Rights. And so we come together to pool our resources, our money, our treasure, so that we can make an impact. Because if I just give to one organization as an individual, it will be appreciated, it will be
Mhm.
utilized. But if I come together with dozens of other women, and we also invite non-gender conforming folks into the group, if we come together with all of our resources, suddenly we have tens of thousands of dollars that we can give and have a real impact on these small groups, oftentimes just starting out. Last year, we funded a group that was just doing analysis to where they could be most helpful in their community and the actions that were happening right then. What a beautiful place to enter what's happening in the world. So it wasn't in the US, and we helped them figure out where they fit in the larger movement and what they could do with that and what the next steps were. And that just makes my heart smile. We helped another group, empower women to create vegan products that they could then use themselves and share with their friends and family and maybe even sell and make a little income in a nation where that's challenging. So
Mhm.
it's, getting these women, and I know empowered is a bit of a loaded word now, so it might be better to say emboldened them to do it differently and vegan. And that's just two of the organizations that we supported last year. And every year we do this. So this organization has been around for a while. I joined in 2022, and we're just about to hit into our next funding cycle. So mid-April, our application closes. There are strict parameters on who can apply. So it has to be an organization that their budget is $250,000 or less, which is a
Mhm.
very small amount, definitely hitting at those just starting out organizations. Maybe we can help with capacity building. It has to be women led. It has to be women led. And if those two things don't fit the organization, they don't qualify. And we do that
Mhm.
on purpose because that helps make sure that we are focusing not just our money, but also our time and effort on the organizations that we so desperately want to support because we want to see them thrive. We want to see new women leaders in our movement doing amazing things. And if we can help that in any way, that's what inspires us. And then, and then maybe it'll inspire funders with even more resources to give on top of what we're doing or what we have done. So it's seed money to get going, and hopefully, hey, we got a Women Funders and Animal Rights grant in whatever year when they apply for the next big moment. And maybe that will help the next group say, oh, they are very thoughtful about who they give to. They only have so many resources and they gave it to this group. They saw something there that was valuable. So, yes, some of the organizations that we've funded over the years have grown and they don't qualify anymore. Yay! That's amazing.
I love everything that you're all about. Um, that is so important. And, being a woman, it can be intimidating trying to create something and put yourself out there, and for so many reasons. And it sounds like you create an opportunity for organizations who might get overlooked by creating such a niche of who you provide support for. You're giving these other organizations an opportunity to really shine, and to the point where then they don't even qualify anymore, which is actually a great thing because then they're really succeeding. It's like you watered that seed to help them become a big tree.
That's the hope. That is absolutely the hope.
That's really wonderful. And what are some of the benefits that members receive? Like, it sounds like it's a really great community. I attended an open meeting a while back, and I remember it was just really informative. Like, you talk about different topics, right? There's like various types of support. So can you share a little bit more about the support that members experience in the community?
Absolutely. So, yeah, the big thing is you get to be part of the grant making process, which is something that many people and many women don't get to be part of.
Yeah.
So, every member, no matter what level they come in at, has the same value in the organization. We all get one vote to who we think should receive funding that year. And so that's the big piece. You get to learn about these organizations. You get to put your vote in for where you think the money should go. And then you get to watch what comes out of that and read the reports that our organizations give us at the end of the year, these kinds of things. So that is very motivating for me. But there's other
Hmm.
benefits that are really motivating for folks too. So, one, we try to spend time on networking. So, giving time for people just to meet one another. We are all over the world. How cool is it? Now I have a friend in Australia and a friend in Africa and a friend, in countries all over the world that I can potentially draw knowledge from and
Yeah.
friendship and joy and these kinds of things. So we try very hard to give networking time in our meetings so that we can all get to know each other and feel like a real team, not just a bunch of women voting on applications. The other thing we try to do is we try to take topics that aren't talked about enough in the animal rights movement
Mm.
among women. So, for example, we've did a session a few months back, and we're revisiting it in April on the donor versus funder paradox and what that means and how it can potentially be abused and how we can work through that as individuals in the movement, right? So, for example, you maybe someone works at a nonprofit, animal rights nonprofit, and a funder, when I say funder, that's someone that's bringing in a significant amount of money, says, I will give you 100,000, I'm making this up, I'll give you $100,000 if you implement this brand new program. Do you take that money? Should you take that money? Will it take away
Yeah.
from what you're trying to accomplish? Will it hurt you in the end? Or imagine someone says, I'm going to withdraw my funding because you did this one thing that I didn't like. Then what? We don't talk about this. Why don't we talk about this? We should be prepared for these moments. But it's not just as, a person in an organization, right? It's as funders. We should be aware that these are behaviors that should not be happening. And we should be thinking about that ahead of time. Women funders in animal rights, we don't put constraints on our grants. You tell us what you're going to do with that, and we ask you at the end of the year what you accomplished. We never say you can have this money if you X, Y, or Z. That's not what we do. But we know that happens. So
Yeah.
we're having this conversation. So we have big conversations about issues in the movement, peripheral to the movement, that are informative and interesting, and we can all ask questions, and we try to bring in guest speakers as helpful, and we pay honorariums to our guest speakers, which in the animal rights movement is kind of a big deal, because so much of it is grassroots, and so there's not a lot of money to pay speakers, and so a lot of times people don't get paid at all. And so we try very hard to break that pattern, and it just feels amazing.
I love all of that. It's wonderful that on so many levels, right? You're providing the support with these organizations without any specific strings attached, right? You just have to meet the specific requirements and then share what you accomplished at the end. And that's got to be intimidating when you are put in that situation where someone's going to give you money, but they'll only give it to you if you do what they want you to do with it, which I feel is like not fair because that really stifles that organization's authentic ability to do the work that they're trying to do, right? We all have a unique place in the vegan movement. We all have something very important to contribute on so many levels. And the only people who know how to utilize those funds the best are the ones who are requesting it. So, that's unfair.
Well,
And
and it can be something as simple as you have to implement this new software. Wait,
mm,
so my whole staff, we have to buy the software, and my whole staff has to figure out how to use it, no matter what.
right, which then makes you wonder, okay, there's other things involved with this, like, some basically politics, right? It's like,
What are the
to
ethical
some,
issues? What are
yeah,
the time issues? What are the long-term implications?
yeah,
Yeah, you got to think about all those things as an organization, particularly as a smaller organization, because you have
yeah,
limited staff, limited time. Now, I'm not saying larger organizations don't utilize their staff. That's not what I'm saying.
right.
I'm just saying that when you're small, people wear so many hats to make
Mm-hmm.
everything happen, that adding on something like now you get to learn this brand new software can feel very daunting. And as leadership in that
Sure.
organization, you should honestly think about, does this make sense? Is this
Mm-hmm.
something we should do? Do we turn down the money?
Yeah.
Do we stand up to this funder and say it just doesn't make sense for us? And here is why we hope you'll believe, you'll come on board with us. And so we talk about that. And this is just one topic, right? So we've talked about,
Yeah.
how does the animal rights movement integrate with the environmental movement, the good and the bad? We've talked about professionalism in the animal rights movement in the workplace and what that means, why we should think about it. We've talked about, I mean, just a big range of topics. And in fact, we ask our membership each year, what do you want to hear about this coming year? And if we can make
Mm-hmm.
that topic happen, we do. And interestingly, every year one topic comes up and we really struggle to address it. And that is what's happening today in the movement.
Mm-hmm.
We struggle with that because not all of us are 100% in the movement. So I am part of this Women Funders in Animal Rights. But beyond that, it's just me as a volunteer in my community involved in the movement. I am not in the day-to-day of an organization that's focused on these issues every day. And
Yeah.
so I'm limited in what I can add to that conversation. I can share the few things that I understand, but those that are in it every day definitely have a different perspective, and that's valuable. So I love that that topic comes up every year, and I always hope that we can bring it into our meetings. We haven't yet, but it's not for a lack of desire. It's just a lack of how do we address that? How do we get
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, it sounds like, somebody would need to talk about it who's like really immersed in the all the various aspects of the movement in various different ways.
And I think we would need 10 people that were
Probably.
involved at that level
Yeah.
doing different things because the person here isn't going to understand what the person here is doing. And that's part of the obstacle.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it's wonderful that you create this support for women and non-gender conforming individuals who want to help and it's great because not only are you contributing money, but you get all this bonus support and networking. And it sounds like you learned so much from one another. And you can do so much more good in the world when you have that support. It's less intimidating when you have other people who you can connect with and you can do so much good with. And is there a minimum amount that you need to contribute to be a member?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So we hope that all members will give at least $500 a year. But we
Hmm.
also recognize that many of our members work in nonprofit, and nonprofit typically doesn't pay as much. And so we ask for those folks, it's a sliding scale. But we never ask anyone to justify what they're giving. We just
Hmm.
take it on face value that they've given what they can give. So the very minimum is $100. If that is a challenge, we do have members that give extra to sponsor some women to be part of the group, but we never tell anybody who the sponsored individuals are. Remember, everybody has equal vote, everyone has equal access.
Hmm.
We have a small group of what we call the leadership committee, a small group of volunteers that help make everything run smoothly. And it is only the leadership committee that reviews those requests and knows who is at that level. And we inspire them to give in the ways that they can. Maybe they can volunteer in a way in a role that we can't fill at the moment, or maybe they can give $25 or, right. So we want them to give
Hmm.
the way everyone else is giving in the way that they can handle it.
I love that. And it's great that because you all pool your money together, it allows people to be part of a large contribution who may not be able to give a large contribution other ways. And
Right.
so it can feel really rewarding when you can help others. And sometimes we feel limited with the amount of help we can do financially. But when you get to do this with other people, then that little contribution, whatever it is part of a really big contribution.
Yeah. It turns out to be tens of thousands of dollars. I think the most amount of money we've had to give, had not had to, but have had to give was just over $70,000 one year.
Wow. That's
Yeah. So
wonderful.
I think we helped 10 groups that year.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all about that. And what is the best way for people to connect with animal women funders and animal rights?
Well, we have a web page, and that
Okay.
is Women Funders in AR. So you can go there and learn more, and you can see who's on the leadership committee and follow links to give or apply for membership or both. And we also have a space that we are more active in than others in social media, and that's on LinkedIn. So
Okay.
our open meetings are announced there and other initiatives that we're working on are announced there. So that's a really good place to know when an open meeting is happening for sure, unless you know someone who's in the group who's also trying to promote those open meetings. And we actually keep a list of folks who want to be informed when we have open meetings, and we try to send an email to those folks when we send our meeting reminders out. So meeting reminders go out about 2 weeks ahead.
Hmm.
And so anyone who's on the Tell Me About Open Meetings list also gets an email. This is what's coming. Here's the date and the time and the link, because all our meetings are virtual because we're all over the world.
I love that. And I'll also include the links and the notes below this video. So those of you watching want to check it all out. you
Perfect.
can do so. You also have a platform called An Everyday Vegan. What is that all about?
Yeah, so I went vegan quite a while ago now in 1998. I'm getting close to 30 years vegan, and that is not at all someone who I know other people who've been vegan longer than I. But what was so interesting about it is I went vegan at a time when it was pretty rare, pretty unusual. And
Yeah,
I went vegan in a small town, which didn't have many resources. And the vegan options that it had tasted terrible. They honestly tasted like feet.
yeah.
And so what I found, and the other piece of that is that I try really hard to not be that vegan in the room. Do you know what I mean? There's that
Mm-hmm.
terrible joke. How can you tell who the vegan is in the room? And the
They'll
answer
tell
is
you.
they will tell you. I try not to be that vegan. So, and that means planning ahead. It means all the things that we all know, right? Planning ahead, thinking ahead, bringing food to share and not advertising that it's vegan, just like, hey, here's yummy food. I brought cookies, right? Whatever that looks like. I try really hard to be that person instead. So what I noticed is that my not in your face approach, eventually people would start to ask questions such as, oh, I noticed you didn't order the thing on the menu that everybody orders. You go to a steakhouse and you get the baked potato and the salad bar. And tell me more about that. And so I would say, well, and my origin story is a little different because I started with health reasons. And so a lot of people are comfortable with that, right? They can understand health reasons. I don't tell them about the window cows because why would I do that, especially when we're eating?
Yeah.
So I would say health reasons, it's really made a difference in my life. I do care about the animals, and I just kind of leave it at that. So I try to come off as a very friendly, welcoming person when it comes to that. So because I had started so early, what I found is that people started to ask me questions about what they should do if they wanted to go vegan or
Hmm.
their brother's best friend's cousin's nephew, right? Like people that they knew peripherally. Oh, well, I have this one friend who happens to be vegan and she's real nice. So let me see if she's got some answers. So what happened was I started writing, or I was ending up writing this long, intricate email over and over and over again about here are some brands to try. You can probably find them in these grocery stores in your community. When you think about this, try, it's just this long email about, personal products and foods and it was exhausting because at the time I thought, oh, this is so great. Someone wants to know about this and it's so important to animals. Let me answer these emails and these questions. And at some point I realized that was a lot of work and I could do it differently. So I started a blog, and that's where An Everyday Vegan started. I'm just a regular person. I'm an everyday person who just happens to be vegan. So here's what I have found. Here's how I think about Thanksgiving. Here are some of the personal care products I use. Here are recipes I've made up because vegan cookbooks were pretty terrible back in 1998. I mean, they were bad and lots of ingredients that I didn't know what they were or could find in my community, right? So I had to figure all that out. So here's some recipes, here's some thinking, here's what I would do in this scenario.
Yeah.
And so it was just a blog and I just kept adding to it, adding to it. And I started that in 2013. Well, in 2018, I had decided to do something different. So, having started early, I didn't know many other vegans. It was the rare occasion that I would come across someone who was vegan. And of course, instant connection because of that. But they didn't always live near me, or we didn't become besties or whatever. So
Hmm.
my connection to the movement, my cultural experience was veg news. Every issue, I read every issue cover to cover because that was my community. I didn't know how else to get it. And the Main Street Vegan Academy was in every issue. And every issue I would think, oh, that's really interesting. I should learn more about that. I should look into that. And I happened to be living in New York City in 2018, and I decided to go through the academy. I thought, I don't know what to do with my website. I don't know what to do with this. I don't, what do I, maybe this course could be interesting and fun. And I love to learn. I have a PhD. Clearly, I love to learn. So I did the leap and I took the class and I loved it. And it was similar to Women Funders. It opens you to a huge network of people, lots of learning, lots of talking. And the core of it really is to help you think about how to do what you're doing differently, whether it's
Hmm.
to start a business or maybe a nonprofit or just do a better job in your community. Whatever that looks like for you, the course is really to help you amplify that. And so everyone said, you have this resource that you've been working on for 5 years. Why don't you do something with that? And since now I had this certification as a vegan lifestyle coach and educator, I thought, why don't I start trying to help other people go vegan in a more organized and thoughtful way instead of just
Hmm.
random questions and random blog posts and these kinds of things. So I turned my blog into an actual website. I started talking to people about potentially being a client rather than just someone I talk to. And that's really where it came from. I don't really take too many clients these days, but I still love it when I can squeeze it into my schedule. And, the people that I work with are always so interesting, and their reasons for going vegan are so fascinating.
Hmm.
I haven't encountered another window cow story, but the stories are just as valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know anyone who's told a window cow story except you. So,
Well, that's the thing. I would imagine that there are other similar traumatic stories, but they haven't come
yeah.
back to me other than reading other people's stories and in books and things like that.
Yeah. Main Street Vegan Academy is amazing. I did it in the fall last year. And
Yay.
yeah, it was incredible. And I've been vegan. It'll be 9 years in April. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I remember the date for some reason. April 29th, 2017 is like, I was like, I'm doing this.
Good for you.
Yeah, it took me a couple years because I knew my family wasn't gonna do. My husband's not vegan. Our kids were younger at the time. Now they're all in their early 20s, but I had to like figure out like how to be different and embrace being different. But yeah, Main Street Vegan, I not that I knew everything about but it really like leveled up my knowledge on so many things. And the community is amazing. The people are amazing. Victoria Moran's amazing. It was a very life-changing experience. So,
Good. It
um,
was for me too.
and you got to
I
do it in person, right? Because you did it in 2018.
Yeah, I did it
Yeah.
in person. That was before she had switched to
Yeah.
online opportunities. And then in 2020, I did the master certification online because that was during the pandemic. So she had pivoted
Hmm.
quickly because it's such an important program and she wanted to
Yeah.
continue to reach people. So I absolutely understand. And I think it has reached even more people because of having an online opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
She just talked about going to in-person opportunities again, and I can't remember if she has had done classes in person yet, but I know she misses that. At the
Hmm.
same time, I also know life changes and life happens, and maybe it just doesn't make sense right now for her either. But I
Yeah.
wanted to go back to something that's come up a couple times in this conversation, and that is you just said it. You said it so poignantly. I had to learn how to be different.
Yeah.
And you said my husband isn't vegan, and the people closest to you weren't vegan. And one of the things I really advocate with my clients is find your support system, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, your husband, I don't know how it went for the two of you, but I bet you had a conversation that was about, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this for me. Will you
Mm-hmm.
support me? Will you be here for me? And I would like to think that he said yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
that there
share
were,
that.
yeah, and that there were other people in your life that did the same thing. So these are the folks that when you go to an event and somebody says something really terrible about vegans, like some stupid joke, they're the ones that are there to say, hey, that's not it. That's a dumb, terrible joke. Don't tell that
Mm-hmm.
joke again. Instead of you having to stand up for yourself every single time or
Yeah.
just let it happen because that's what we're taught in our culture to just let terrible things happen, especially
Mm-hmm.
as women. And
Yeah.
so now, who's your support system? Who's the one that's going to be there to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure we're going to go to this event and it's not going to have anything. Can I help you make something? Or can I bring something too so that you're not the only one that's bringing something different?" All of these things. So yeah, I really advocate that with my clients. Try to find your support system and enroll the people that are already in
Mm-hmm.
your life that already love you and care about you and want to see you be successful. Let those people help you so that you're not alone and walking this path that can be so challenging sometimes all by yourself.
Absolutely. And I've had family, my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, they one time they got married a few years ago and went over to their home for dinner, and I usually bring like some kind of a main and a dessert always to share. So I brought like something, and she's like, "Oh, you didn't need to bring anything." She made like all this different food. She looked up all kinds of recipes, and she actually had fun cooking things differently. And so there are people who actually are enjoy helping you. They enjoy supporting you, and they see this opportunity as, oh, I get to cook something differently in a way I never cooked before, right?
Yeah.
And
What a
so
gift.
yeah, it's a gift. And then I've had people who, I've had people all over the spectrum.
Right.
But one of the things, there's two types of conversations I had with my husband. The first was when I first went vegan. I was the cook at home and our kids were younger at the time. So I decided that I would still make non-vegan food for my family and and then just only worry about myself in terms of that. But then when we became empty nesters and we were in Brooklyn, we moved to the Hudson Valley area, um, and we're like an hour and a half from New York City now. And I was like, you know what? I just don't want to touch this stuff anymore. And so then I had a part two conversation with my husband where I'm like, if you want the meat and other animal products, you can do that. I mean, I didn't say exactly like that, but I said it just really bothered me to do that. And now that things have kind of changed, and he's support. I mean, he likes it if I would make it, but um, he respects me. He does tease me playfully, and we have like our funny banter and humor with it. Um, but the thing that I tell, and then I've had friendships that have kind of fizzled out after I went vegan. And one of the things that I tell people all the time is, people who truly care about you, they're going to stand by your side and they're going to support you. And if somebody doesn't want to continue interacting with you because you choose to go vegan, then that says more about the relationship than it is a reflection on you.
More
And
about them.
yeah, exactly. It's about the relationship and a reflection on them and not a reflection on you. And of course, it's painful, but as I've gone through this process, like I've realized I'd rather be with people who authentically care about me
Yeah.
and then, people who don't. And yeah, and so that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing, the work that all of us are doing, are providing a community. It took me a long time before I had community. I relied on Facebook groups and YouTube channels. Um, and
Veg
then
news.
yeah, and then Veg News also. I used to get Veg News. I still read Veg News. And Yeah. And then it got to a point where I wanted to, I saw a need for conversations that I wish I had in my support journey and then I created the platform that I had. So, and then you did the same thing. You went and you created a platform to help people because they were asking you all these questions. And so I love how we start off doing different things and then we find ways to incorporate our veganism to help that. And that's how I think impactful change is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's going to change if we're not all
Yeah.
thinking about it and changing our own approaches in lives in the ways that we are comfortable with, right? So
Hmm.
I meet new vegans a lot. I love it. I love meeting new vegans. They have so much energy and so much excitement. You know,
Hmm.
they're ready to get in the street and tell everybody about this change that can influence your whole life, your whole being. And we talk about, right? Like I don't need to be in the street anymore, right? I
Yeah.
did that at a time when there were less people doing it.
Yeah.
And I would still do it if it was easier. I live in the suburbs again, and there are not demonstrations happening regularly around me. And I'm so busy now with all the other things I'm doing that I don't really have the capacity to do that anymore. But they're ready. They're there and they're
Hmm.
all over it. And I just, cheer them on, and we talk about, ways to stay safe and ways to engage others that doesn't push them away and things
Hmm.
like that. And it's just such a fun, energizing moment. Because then I'll go home and I'll do my computer work and go to my meetings, and I'm doing the things that I can do in the ways that I am good at and feel good about, and they're doing the things that they feel good about and they're good at, and it's the only way we're going to make change.
Yeah,
Only way.
100%. Ah, I love that. Dina, it's been wonderful chatting with you. I can't believe it's been almost an hour. Time flies. Thank you so much for sharing everything about your vegan story, the work that you're doing with women funders and animal rights, as well as Everyday Vegan. Your contributions are really important. And
Well, thank you so much for
before,
having me and letting me talk about it. I don't talk
yeah,
about
my
myself too
pleasure.
much.
No, I've loved having you. Before we wrap up, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so I have my website, aneverydayvegan.com, and I have an email through that, aneverydayveg@gmail.com. Those
Okay,
are both great ways to reach me, to talk about any of the things that we've talked about today.
great. I will make sure to include all of that in the notes below this video as well, so you can connect with Dina really easily. All
Thank
right, Dina,
you.
well, thanks again for having this great conversation with me. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.